I'm 93 years old. Most mornings I sit by this window and watch the birds. Simple things, quiet things. But some mornings my mind goes back to a ditch in Korea. Back to a January night so cold your tears froze before they reached your chin. I was 17 years old, alone, bleeding into the mud. And I heard boots, heavy boots, American boots. And I was certain, absolutely certain, that the man walking toward me had come to finish the job. I was wrong. And that mistake, that terrifying, beautiful mistake, changed everything I would ever believe about a stranger, about an enemy, about what a human being is capable of. My name is Park Sung-jin. I was born in a small village outside Pyongyang in 1932, back when the whole peninsula was still one country, still one people, still one idea of home. I'm telling you this now because somebody has to. The men who stood beside me, most of them are buried. Some in marked graves, some in ground that nobody ever went back to find. I think about them every single day. Not the way people think about old photographs. The way you think about someone who is still in the room with you, standing just outside your sight. This story is mine, but it belongs to them too. What I'm going to tell you happened in January of 1951, in the mountains above the Imjin River, during the worst winter the Korean peninsula had seen in 30 years. I was 18 years old. I weighed maybe 50 kilograms. And I was about to learn the single most important thing I would ever learn about being alive. Before the war, I was ordinary. That's important. I want you to understand that. I was not brave. I was not strong. I was a boy who helped his father plant barley and argued with his younger sister about whose turn it was to carry water from the well. I loved two things: a girl named Suyeon, who lived 3 fields over, and a dog named Gori, who slept across my feet every winter night and kept my toes from freezing. When the war came in June of 1950, it came the way floods come. One morning, everything is normal. The next morning, the water is at the door. My father didn't say much when they came for me. He put both hands on my shoulders, held them there for a long moment, and then he stepped back. That was my father, the quietest form of love I have ever known. My mother tied a small cloth pouch around my wrist, rice and a single dried jujube inside. She said, "Come home hungry. Just come home." I was not a soldier when I left that village. I was a boy in a uniform 3 sizes too large, carrying a rifle I had fired exactly 4 times in training. The army does not prepare you for what war actually is. War is noise and cold and confusion. War is not knowing where you are. War is the sound of your own breathing in the dark when everything else has gone quiet, and that quiet being somehow more terrifying than all the noise that came before it. By December of 1950, I had seen enough to know that coming home was not a plan. It was a prayer. The battle broke open on the night of January 3rd, 1951. Our unit was positioned along a frozen ridge above a small valley. 18 men. Sergeant Choi was our commander, a thick man from Busan who never raised his voice and never wasted a word. I trusted him completely. The Chinese forces had been pushing south since October. Hundreds of thousands of them, crossing the Yalu River like a tide that had no intention of stopping. We had heard stories, numbers so large they didn't feel real. That night they felt very real. The attack came from 3 directions. I don't know what time it was, somewhere past midnight. The first sign was a sound, a low horn, then another, then something like a wave of noise rolling down the mountain toward us. "Hold," Sergeant Choi said. Just that. "Hold." I held. Then the ridge erupted. I don't describe firefights the way you see in movies. It isn't organized. It isn't heroic. It is 10 seconds of screaming chaos followed by silence, then more chaos, and you cannot tell friend from enemy in the dark. You can only move and shoot and pray you are pointing in the right direction. Corporal Hahn, who had given me half his ration of rice 3 nights earlier because I hadn't eaten, was beside me one moment, and then he wasn't. I did not stop to look. You cannot stop. Stopping is dying. I ran, I fell, I ran again. I lost my unit in the dark somewhere between the ridge and the frozen creek at the bottom of the valley. And then something hit my left leg. I don't know if it was a bullet or shrapnel or the edge of something blasted loose from the earth. And I went down into the snow, and I did not get up. The cold came immediately. The kind of cold that doesn't feel like cold anymore. It just feels like weight. I pulled myself into a drainage ditch along the edge of a field. I could hear the battle still moving, still rolling away from me. And then, slowly, it moved far enough that all I could hear was the wind. I was alone. I lay in that ditch for what I think was 2 hours, maybe 3. Time stops meaning the same thing when you're bleeding and you can no longer feel your feet. I had used my belt as a tourniquet above my knee. Sergeant Choi had shown us this once, almost as an afterthought. And in that ditch, I thanked him with everything I had. I was going in and out. You know that place between sleeping and waking? It was like that, except on one side was consciousness, and on the other side was something I understood might be permanent. I heard the boots before I saw him. Slow, deliberate steps in the snow. One person, coming closer. I pressed myself against the frozen earth. I had no weapon left. Somewhere in the darkness, I had lost my rifle. I have a small knife on my belt, and I put my hand on it, though I knew it would not matter. The footsteps stopped. I looked up. He was tall. That's the first thing. Tall and broad in a winter coat I did not recognize. And for one single second, I could not make sense of what I was seeing. Then I saw the helmet. The American helmet. My mind said, enemy. That was what the war had taught me. Anyone I don't know is the enemy. That was the only rule that kept you alive. I raised the knife. He put his hands up, slowly, both of them, palm out. And he said something in English that I didn't understand. Then he said it again, quieter. And then he did the strangest thing. He sat down in the snow. Right there, in front of me, he sat down so that we were at the same level, so I wasn't looking up at him anymore. And he looked at me, not at my knife, not at my leg, at me, and he said one word. Okay. Just that. Okay. He reached slowly into his jacket and he pulled out a bandage. He held it out. I did not take it. He set it on the snow between us. Then he pointed at my leg. Then he pointed at the bandage. Then he put his hands back up. I don't know how long we stayed like that, him, hands raised, sitting in the snow. Me, holding a knife I could barely grip. What broke it was simple. He was shivering, not from fear, from cold. Real, ordinary cold, the same cold that was killing me. And something about seeing that, seeing that he was just a body in the freezing dark, same as me. Something loosened in my chest. I put the knife down. He moved forward, carefully, and he bandaged my leg with the kind of focused, quiet attention of someone who had done it before, many times, in conditions exactly like this. He never said another word. When he finished, he looked at me once more. That same look. Not pity, something else. Something I still search for the right word to describe. Then he helped me stand. He put my arm over his shoulder. And we walked. I learned later that his name was Corporal David Rourke, from a town called Macon, Georgia. He was 22 years old. He had become separated from his own unit during the same engagement that had scattered mine. He had been wandering that valley for hours, looking for a way back to his lines. He found me instead. He carried me for almost 4 kilometers in the dark. I drifted in and out of consciousness. When I was awake, I could feel his breathing, hard and labored, and I understood the weight of what he was doing. He delivered me to a South Korean aid station near Uijeongbu as the sky was beginning to gray. A medic came running. There were voices, hands. I grabbed Rourke's sleeve. He looked down at me. I said, in the only English I knew from a school primer I had read twice as a child, "Thank you." He nodded once, squeezed my hand, and then he was gone, back into the gray morning, looking for his own men. I never saw him again. I spent 11 weeks in a field hospital. They saved the leg, though I walked with a limp the rest of my life. Soo-yeon, the girl from 3 fields over, waited for me. She became my wife. We had 4 children, 11 grandchildren. I built a good life, but I built it on the foundation of one man's decision, in the dark, in the snow, to sit down instead of walk past. I'm 93 years old. I have had a long time to think about what happened in that ditch. Here is what I know. David Rourke did not have to stop. He was lost, he was cold, he was searching for his own people. Every practical reason in the world told him to keep walking. I was a foreign soldier, an unknown, a risk. He stopped anyway. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. We spend so much of our lives building walls, between countries, between neighborhoods, between ourselves and the stranger who needs something we could give. The war taught me to do that. But David Rourke, one cold night in Korea, taught me something the war couldn't. Walls keep out fear, but they keep out grace too. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if there's much time left for me. When you're 93, you stop pretending otherwise. But I needed you to know this story existed. The 2 young men, one Korean, one American, sat down together in the snow at the edge of the world and chose, without words, without shared history, without any reason except something raw and human, chose to trust. That happened. It was real. And if it could happen there, in the coldest, darkest place I have ever been, it can happen anywhere.